Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Navis Nobilite. I am Captain Zelnick, and I'm going to be talking about a fleet overview for Chaos today. Now, in the previous video about the brief overview of the Imperial Navy, we talked about how the Imperial Navy is a grinding force designed for a slow and oppressive bombarding approach upon the enemy target as you have smaller, lighter, and more maneuverable vessels moving around on the flanks in order to defeat your enemy. Chaos functions in a very different manner. Chaos ships are generally faster than the Imperial Navy. They are generally more heavily armed with contemporary weapons like lances and batteries, and they lack a lot of special weapons like torpedoes and other fun and unusual things that are equivalent to Nova cannons. Now, Chaos has a couple of things that make it unique. Namely, Chaos has a heck of a lot of upgrades. Now, they're expensive, but they all change very much how a ship is used within the context of the Chaos fleet as a whole. You have the principal marks of Korn, Nurgle, Slanesh, and Tzeentch. All of them do different things, and I'll go into detail about them when I actually talk about the individual fleet lists. But you can get a vague idea about what they do simply by the nature of the gods in question. So, Korn, you do better in boarding. Nurgle, your ships can't be boarded and they're tougher. Slanesh, you ruin enemy leadership if they're close enough. And Tzeentch, you can manipulate fate and get rerolls in the game. Now, all of this is very important in the context of Chaos because the Chaos ships themselves, while they are faster, they are also more fragile. There's not a single Chaos vessel in the entire fleet that has a 6-up armor. It's pretty universally 5-up armor all around, unless it's the little iconoclast like these little guys over here, which only have 4-up armor. But what do you get in return for all of that? Well, firepower and long-range firepower. The Imperial Navy's base firepower range is roughly 30 centimeters to 45 centimeters until you get into the battlecruiser range, where it goes up to around 45 to 60, and along with the battleships at 45 to 60. Chaos gets 60 centimeter range weapons right at cruiser level, and they have escorts that have 45 centimeter weapons alongside them. So obviously the name of the game is long range firepower, high speed, and good maneuverability, with a couple of really fancy special rules and special ships in their upper tier, which really kind of rounds out the Chaos fleet. Now, the Chaos vessels are presumably the classic Imperial vessels from pre-Heresy era. So there are a couple of Imperial Navy fleets that can gain access to a few of these with funny rules that can have the expected results. That's why you so frequently see in Chaos fleets, or Imperial fleets, a couple of Chaos vessels. Because in the Space Marine fleet, you can take some Chaos ships as venerable battle barges, and of course there is the reserve fleet of Segmentum Obscurus, which lets you take a couple of these Chaos ships as well. So overall, Chaos is overall far more of a switchblade fleet or a multi-tool fleet. You can play the game fast and aggressive. You can play the game slow and long range. You can rush right up in front of an enemy and just pound the tar out of them with close range firepower. You can even just go in for the boarding action and just focus on boarding your enemy, not caring about all of the weird Wuji magic stuff, or you can just take marks for days. Now, Chaos has a lot of different fleet options. They have, of course, the 13th Black Crusade, you have the Incursion fleet, you have the principal fleets of the four Chaos Gods. There's a lot of choices here. So, really, it's a matter of, again, like the Imperial Navy, the flavor that you desire that makes the game more interesting for you. Now, when it comes to individual ship firepower, Chaos is different than the Imperial Navy. Chaos's battleships are not actually as powerful point for point than the Imperial Navy. They're actually pretty significantly weaker, but they function off of gimmicks, and those gimmicks make them very useful. Now, there are examples of highly powerful and highly expensive Chaos battleships, namely the four fleet the four principal Chaos God fleet battleships, which I will get to on an individual level. But really, the power of Chaos lays in its grand cruisers and its heavy cruisers, because that's where all of the real heavy firepower is concentrated for the fleet. They really want you to take advantage of the beautiful benefit of things like the Repulsive or the Hades or the Acheron or the Styx, and taking the uh, Desolator battleship is really a matter of tactical choice as opposed to getting some kind of hammer or anvil option. And taking the despoiler really is a matter of replacing the opportunity to take a Styx or a couple of devastations so you can focus more on firepower in your smaller ships. So Chaos, also an important thing to point out, Chaos vessels are generally cheaper than their Imperial Navy counterparts, mostly because they lack the special weapons. And that's another important thing. If you're a torpedo fan, you're going to have to work hard to gain access to torpedoes in the Chaos list. There are very few torpedo-bearing vessels in Chaos. So bear that in mind. You want torpedoes? You better take a couple of Infidels, a Repulsive, or a Desolator, because otherwise you're not getting a choice. So bear that in mind. Now I'm going to start going over each individual ship, just like the Imperial Navy. But I would say that if the Imperial Navy is, overall probably the most powerful fleet, Chaos is right next to it in power. Yeah, it doesn't have access to unlimited Nova cannons, but it has access to basically unlimited amounts of either super fast, high power vessels with battleship level firepower for dirt cheap, or they have access to a combination of rules that makes anyone reconsider their life choices if they get too close or even if they keep distance with these ships. There really is no fleet that Chaos is bad at fighting. Now, they do have some weaknesses. There are some fleets that are better at fighting them than others, but there's no real overt and obvious weaknesses. And generally speaking, a Chaos fleet, thanks to the beauty that is the carnage and the murder, is one of the best fleets to take on a Eldar fleet out there, especially with these handy little Iconoclast destroyers, which are super zippy, super cheap, and have good weapons batteries on them. All right, I'm going to go on to the individual ships now. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you with the first Chaos vessel.